Week 8, fantasy football reactions. This is going to be a little bit of a somber one, I think. Both mine and Danny's teams went down in somewhat heartbreaking fashion. We did have some major injuries that we're going to have to talk about here as well. I did beat Danny in our flock league.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert. We'll cover that
play
on Tuesday's vlog, but it was a monster performance from my team, not so much from Danny's.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm projected, I believe, 124 right now, and I still have 3 players tonight. Your team just went off. Like, I'll be honest. Like, obviously, Devon Achane, big performance now with Tua coming back. I mean, some of your shit cans also went off. Like Calvin Ridley, 22.6 points, really pissed me off after the 1 p.m. game because I'm like, fun fact, if you guys are watching, me and Corey were talking about it off stream. I've played against the Calvin Ridley owner 2 times this year because obviously he was traded to Corey, and I played the guy that originally drafted him. The 2 times I played against Calvin Ridley, he has 20 plus PPR points. Every other week, he has not crossed over 10.
Yeah. Calvin Ridley, better in best ball or better when you're facing Danny Ladd 21. So, yeah, interesting. It'll be a fun recap for the Flock League. I mean, you were talking a little bit of smack early in the week.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, like, I mean, you mentioned I haven't been able to beat you in any of the dynasty leagues that we're in. And we're in like fucking probably 7 or 8 leagues together because we obviously run a lot of listener leagues. Every time I've played you this year, it doesn't matter if my team was better than yours or not.
Team just goes off.
Devi Disciples team, your team is like tanking and you beat me. Like it was weird. I couldn't beat you until this week. But yeah, I feel pretty good about the win in the Flock League because now I'm actually alive. Like both of us are 4-4. Of course, you're gonna have Collins coming back.
Is the whole league 4-4 right now?
I was
other
dead.
than like 4 people. Like, dude, look at the standings right now. Like every 4-3 team lost, every 3-4 team won it. I'm pretty sure in the Flock
League.
This
no, it's going to be an interesting back half of the season because my team's starting to get a little bit better going forward. So let's talk about the major injuries. There was a couple that we do need to talk about here.
One thing in the Flock League, by the way, there's actually 1 4-3 team that won and 1 3-4 team. First of all, Austin's team is a fucking juggernaut. We could talk about that. Second of all, Nathan's projected score 156 in a loss.
Who is?
Nathan. 156. Ooh. And he played Austin this week, who dropped 182 points.
Yeah, that is pretty brutal. That is pretty brutal. So let's start with the major injuries, and it looks like we got a couple. And Stephon Diggs being the biggest one. Non-contact right knee injury. They didn't say, they feared that he suffered a torn ACL, which is sometimes what we see after those type of plays. He's going to obviously get some MRIs. The backlash and the fallout of it is obviously going to be that if Stephon Diggs is out, I mean, Nico Collins is going to be unbelievable when he comes back. And Tank Dell is alive also. I think Tank Dell is definitely, wide receiver 2 potential rest of season as long as Diggs is going to be out for. And obviously Collins is like literally top 3 to 5 receiver rest of season.
Look at us. I mean,
you have Collins, I have Dell, so we'll feel pretty good about that. Obviously, not good news for Stephon Diggs managers. You're hoping that it's a bone bruise or an LCL sprain. That was what Dr. Moore said. If it's an LCL sprain, it'll be like a mid, kind of 2 to 4 week absence. But it looked bad. Like it looked like a significant knee injury, is what he said.
Well, anytime it happens on a sharp cut like that, and they instantly fall to the ground, I never have good feelings about an ACL injury.
Yeah, no, it's not good. And Pete asked, is Dell wide receiver 1 with both out? I mean, this week until Collins comes back, then
15 at least.
He's going to be, I think they play the Jets on Thursday night, so it's not a good matchup for him to be the starting only guy there, but I'm sure he'll have a lot of targets for sure.
Hear me out. Again, I'll have to look at the entire usage, but who popped up a couple times when I was watching, because I didn't watch this game in depth, but when I was watching Red Zone, who popped up a couple times? Big John Mechie, man. And again, we'll talk about some sneaky waivers, but no Diggs, no Collins. If you are desperate in your PPR 4 flex type of league, like he's probably like a wide receiver 4 this week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see if Diggs is for sure out, and I want to take a look at the snapshot. Maybe that's what you're looking up right now to see what the route participation is. We won't move on from
targets on 28% of the snaps. So I do think with Diggs out, like if I were to find the ideal slot wide receiver to play the Diggs role, it would be Mechie.
What were the route participations behind Dell?
Let me take a look. I'm assuming Hutchinson probably had the most, but let me take a look. So. And of course, the first Hutchinson I see is Aiden Hutchinson.
Is Robert Woods still on the Texans?
I think he's hurt, isn't he? I know he was banged up a couple of weeks ago. Is he still hurt? I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. The guy's always hurt, but okay, no, he played this week. He missed against the Bills. So he had 2 catches for 18 yards. Mechie had 4 targets on 28% of the snaps.
Right. Okay. Looking at the route participation, Dell had 75%, Hutchinson 65%, Robert Woods had 20% of the routes, and he actually had 25% targets per route run. So he was definitely a factor. And Mechie only ran 23% of the routes. I would imagine Hutchinson is the guy that you'd want to pick up, most likely, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what they're thinking.
Hutchinson's more in the Nico role, right? Because he's the bigger X receiver, right? Versus Mechie might have the Diggs role.
I don't know, though. Hutchinson was a slot receiver, a big slot in college. It's possible he plays the Diggs role.
The only issue that I have is out of the other Texans wide receivers with Mechie and Robert Woods, who you throwing on the outside then?
Yeah, I mean, Mechie's got the size to play on the outside, and Woods does too. But yeah, well, anyways, the Texans wide receivers, it's going to be Dell, and probably who the hell cares after that. And Dalton Schultz is going to be, they're just literally, they're going to run Mixon a million times. Is probably what's going to happen against the Jets anyway.
Top 3 running back rest of the season. That's where I have him ranked.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put him over Kyron. I wouldn't even, like, with Tua back now, I would not put him over Achane either. But he'd be in the top 6 to 7 for sure. Like, I can't put him over Henry. I wouldn't put him over Bijan or Brees. I think he's probably right behind those guys.
I'm higher on him than you are. I mean, like we've talked about this before, but like when I'm looking at Mixon, like I don't know why I've become a Mixon stan this year, but it almost feels like now he's finally doing what everybody's been talking about for the longest time, and he's not getting the type of recognition that he was when he wasn't doing it.
It's like how we became Fournette stans at the end of his career.
Yeah, literally. Mixon, every game that he's played fully healthy, he's gone over 20 PPR points this year. Every game.
No, he's been outstanding. He's been so good, and they've run the offense through him. And Stroud, like they're actually like handicapping Stroud with the amount that they're running. They're not throwing the ball nearly enough, and maybe we should have seen this coming. Last year, they wanted to be more run heavy, and like Singletary and Pierce just like weren't getting it done for them. So they let Stroud cook a little bit more than we wanted them to. I'd imagine once Collins is back on the field, they'll feel more comfortable throwing. But
should have been a thing with the coaching
this year. They've just been a run heavy team.
Like we should have figured too with the coaching staff. Like you trade for Mixon this offseason. You give him an extension. I'm pretty sure they signed him for 3 years as soon as they traded for him, right?
Yeah, no, they gave him an extension, I think, within like hours of trading for him or something like that. We did have a couple other big injuries in the AFC South as well, with Brian Thomas Jr. suffering a rib injury. He's undergoing an MRI today. We don't have any real details about it. Dr. Moore speculated it could be like a 2 to 3 week injury if it's like all clear and he might be out for a game or two. But the big injury was Christian Kirk broke his collarbone and is out for the year. And Gabe Davis also suffered like a shoulder injury in the game. So like literally all 3 of the Jags starting receivers are on the mend. I mean, Evan Ingram is going to just feast for targets. ETN, once he's back, is probably going to get a lot of targets. And Parker Washington, we'll talk about in the waiver section.
How high is too high for Evan Ingram this week in your rankings?
Like, I think he's got to be at least he's got to be a top 5 tight end, probably, as long as Brian Thomas is out of the lineup.
Like, genuinely, we've already seen him be hyper used when he's been in the lineup, and now the entire wide receiver core is down outside of him.
Yeah, so, and like Parker Washington's going to be a guy that we talk about, but like Parker Washington coming into this game was like PFF's like 10th worst rated wide receiver. Like I kind of like him. I think he's interesting if he plays the Kirk role.
He can play a little bit. Yeah.
He can, but like, am I pretending that he's going to come in here and alpha Evan Ingram? Like, no. He like Evan Ingram has, let's see his target totals: 10, 5, and 5 targets the last 3 weeks. 29%, 26%, and 17% target shares. He had 13.6 PPR points this past week. In week 6, he had 19.2. In the London game that they played. Like he's going to get targeted like an absurd amount.
For sure. And some of these other minor injury alerts. And I was actually telling you this off stream, but for those, actually, I'll save the story. Jordan Mason re-injury to the AC sprain. Obviously, the team is on bye week in week 9. It doesn't sound like it's going to be affecting him post-bye, but what will be affecting him will be the presence of Christian McCaffrey if he does.
McCaffrey's going to be back by all indications. So I would imagine that Mason's time is up now. Like this was, if you had Jordan Mason, great, hell of a run for the last couple of weeks. I hope you sold him maybe like 3-4 weeks ago because he hasn't really been good since.
Sold him for mixing straight up in the listener league.
Yeah, that's a hell of a deal right there, because now you have, in your opinion, a top 3 running back, and maybe this is why you become a Mixon stan, is that you're bag defending your.
I traded for him. I traded him away in another league. I traded DJ Moore and Joe Mixon for Justin Jefferson in a different league. So, like, honestly, like I'm still high on Mixon regardless of even if I had him or if I traded him away.
Yeah, for sure. But like you said, minor injuries. Jordan Mason, he's probably just not going to be the starter anymore come week 10 when the bye is over. By all indications, McCaffrey's practicing. He's going to be back by the looks of it. And the 49ers should have a better offense going forward with Christian McCaffrey there. Jordan Love suffered a groin injury. They do have a bye week in week 10. So that could mean we have Malik Willis starting in week 9, and then they hold Jordan Love out that extra game just to get him back healthy, because he's kind of been dealing with stuff all season long. It seems like he came back from the knee injury that he suffered in week 1 a little sooner than he maybe should have. And maybe he's just kind of banged up, and this bye week in week 10 is really what he needs. So it would not shock me if in week 9, Malik Willis is the starting quarterback for Green Bay, but we'll have to wait and see what kind of the severity of Jordan Love's injury looked like for that. And speaking of the Packers too, Josh Jacobs was in and out of the lineup, hobbled a little bit. I don't know what an injury it is. Like
29 touches.
Something like that. He still was fine. It's just he was noticeably hobbling a little bit when you were watching the game.
Well, the other one, I'm not sure if you, okay, Jordan Love, right? Bye week in week 10, right? You mentioned that. Okay. The other one, I mean, another quarterback, Drake May with a concussion. I mean, I will, I'll show them a sneak peek for what I submitted for the Flock League, literally 10 minutes before the concussion got ruled in. So, I mean, here, this is the perk if you guys hop onto the live stream, because I'll show you a little sneak peek to what you will be seeing.
The amount of hate I got for the Drake May pickup. We here, baby. We here. Baby Josh is in the fucking house. Let's go.
That was submitted 10 minutes before he had a concussion and got ruled out for the game.
That's tough. That is tough. And your boy, obviously. I mean, to be honest, like, even if Drake May has a 30-point day, like, you still probably might not have beaten me.
He put up 165. Like, it would have been hard without Nico Collins to put up 165 this week for me.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Drake May concussion could be out week 9 as well. That's, regular concussion timeline. Sometimes you miss the next game as well. Holy hair. Jesus, man, needs a comb. That's funny.
That was straight after the live stream, because obviously, like, he probably scored that rushing touchdown like in the mid first quarter, I believe.
Oh, he scored that like instantly. I sent a message, and a sneak peek for what I'm talking about in the vlog is I sent a message. I think it was like 1:15 p.m. Kyle Pitts had scored a long touchdown. Drake May already rushed in one. I was like, GG's, Danny.
I saw that, and then I checked the Discord after the May, and I'm like, I can't believe you did this to me.
Yeah, well, that's how it's fucking done, fellas. Like, people in our league are changing their names to, sorry, Corey and Mason's, Avery's dad or whatever. It's like, you guys never played fantasy in your life before. You got to wish your teammate good luck after they beat you at 1:15 p.m. Eastern.
No, dude, the funniest thing by far, without a doubt, was fucking Steven Swigall changing his name to Mason's granddaddy after he beat Avery.
Yeah, that was funny. So 2 other injuries I just want to talk about, and then we'll get into some more takeaways here. DJ Moore, hand injury, did return. It looks like he just, fell on it weird or whatever. And then, as I mentioned and made reference to already, Gabe Davis also suffered a shoulder injury. So all 3 of the Jaguars receivers banged up. Kirk out for the year. Brian Thomas may be out for a couple of games potentially. And Gabe Davis, who knows? We don't really get any details on that, but it's going to be Evan Ingram, Parker Washington, Travis Etienne probably as the major pass catchers there going forward. So, Danny, let's get into some of the big takeaways. 2 of them are Bucs related. The first 2, mine is, it's going to be pretty simple. I got to talk about the Buccaneers game because, first of all, Kirk Cousins thrown for like 800 yards in 2 games against us. And I think that might even be a low number, to be honest. He has like 9 touchdowns in 2 games against us as well. The Bucs defense is free cash for fantasy receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends. Like, it is the easiest thing ever to throw on this defense. 438 yards of offense the last 4 weeks is the average that we've allowed, and 33.75 points is the average that we've allowed. So again, I don't expect you guys to know what Buccaneers Twitter is like right now because you're not Buccaneers fans, but everybody is blaming Mayfield for this loss. And I'm like, okay, Mayfield had 2 interceptions and some of them were bad decisions and stuff, but first of all, he doesn't have Godwin or Evans out there, and our defense is a sieve. We can't stop anybody.
Yeah, I know those ones. I mean, I'll just, like, you mentioned your team. I'll quickly talk to, like, you mentioned you don't want to be on Bucs Twitter right now. Cowboys Twitter is probably the most depressing thing you will walk into right now. Literally, if you go on Cowboys Twitter, it's just everybody talking about how everybody on our team is playing like shit. And they're not wrong. Like, everybody on our team is. CeeDee Lamb finally had his first good game of the year. Dak, I'm the Dak stan. He has not been good this year. But with that being said, it's easy to recognize when somebody is playing bad and when it's pretty much impossible to play well in the given situation. Dak is playing awful, but how many quarterbacks would succeed with the current infrastructure of the Cowboys? Not many. Again, that's not to take any credit off the fact that Dak has played bad, but also they just need changes. Like, it's straight up. I mean, somebody, I think it was Ron, replied to a tweet. It's like the Jets and the Cowboys are running early 2000s offenses right now. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally, Jay Full says, I don't know. Jets Twitter is bad here.
The
But I'm
Jets
here
and the
for it,
Cowboys
yeah.
are the same team in either conference right now.
It's bad. I mean, the Bucs are just super overreactive. Every person on Bucs Twitter wants to fire Todd Bowles right now and promote Liam Cohen to the current head coach. And I'm like, chill out, guys. Like the thing that annoys me about the Bucs is that Todd Bowles will come out with these game plans sometimes where he's scared to get beat deep and he plays like soft zone coverage. And then Cousins, like a veteran quarterback, will eat you alive if you play like that. And then he starts tightening up, trying to play man, and then you get beat deep.
Yeah, and then you just get hit with a post shot and yak ability from Kyle Pitts across the middle of the field.
Well, and Mooney too. And Mooney had a touchdown on a post shot as well.
By the way, dude, when he scored that second touchdown and he was laying the ball out like this and Winfield almost got back and stripped it.
Winfield, first of all, did. It was literally, there was a guy on who's a Bucs sideline reporter.
I thought for sure you got it out. I thought for sure.
Angle, and he got it. It was before the goal line. He got it out. Not saying that we would have won the game necessarily, but it would have been a huge turning point. And for what it's worth, Winfield has done that 3 times in 2 years now. And this time he got robbed on the call, but outstanding player. But regardless, like I'm not going to blame the refs. We played like shit, but that was a bad call.
Well, it's just like me. It's like the Cowboys did not deserve to beat the Niners last night, but it is pretty fucking annoying when a blatant OPI in the goal line opens up a Kittle touchdown. That was absurd.
That was bad.
Like any other fan base would have reacted the same way to that. But like at this point, I'm kind of desensitized to that shit because I'm so fucking used to it. That's like, I didn't expect to win the game. Yeah, looking back, take 7 points off the board. You would have won by 1, but that also is with the context that was to take it to 27-10. We probably don't have the comeback that we did if they take that touchdown off the board. So again, we could talk about if, ands, or buts, but at the end of the day, 3-4 is not an ideal spot to be in. I'll tell you that.
No, and we're not in a great spot now either. With Mike Evans out, and you look up at the schedule, it's like, oh, surely we got to play some cupcakes here soon. And we play Kansas City and San Francisco the next 2 games. So not good.
The Cowboys' next 5 games are against playoff teams. So we will find out real quick. I mean, Parsons and D-Law back, we have a more fighting chance, but realistically, it's like we probably need to go at least 3-2, if not 4-1 in the next 5-game stretch. And we play like the Bengals, the Texans, the Eagles, the Falcons, and there was one other good team in that schedule. So yeah, it will be tough. But you mentioned Bucs takeaways as the first 2 here. I mean, the other one here, former Buck, former first overall pick, former crab enthusiast. We got Jameis Winston over here just saving all of your Browns players. Nick Chubb, looked semi-efficient in this game. Maybe Nick Chubb starts ramping up in the next couple of weeks coming off that ACL. But really what the takeaway was the pass catchers, man. Cedric Tillman, we'll talk about in the waiver section. 7 catches, 99 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, playing that big X wide receiver role that we know Jameis likes to target. Elijah Moore, 8 catches, 85 yards, playing that dynamic slot role. Judy having his, I believe this is his best game of the year, right? 5 for 79, or has he had a game better than that so far?
It's depressing that it might be his best game of the year. I think he had a better fantasy day because he scored, but yeah.
Yeah, and then Njoku.
We were eating W's with Jameis Winston for sure.
Amen, brother. And then David Njoku, 5 for 61 in a touchdown. I mean, I talked about it going into the week, but I think we have to start trading David Njoku as a top 5 level tight end rest of the season, to be honest. I mean, all tight ends went off this week. We'll talk about
they every tight end went off on National Tight Ends Day this week. But David Njoku looks great. I mean, it's so fun for me as a Buccaneers fan because I have not been able to cheer for Jameis Winston since he left the Buccaneers because I'm never going to cheer for New Orleans. And as much as the crutches dance after the ACL was the funniest shit I've ever seen, it still happened after we got smoked by New Orleans on Sunday Night Football. So I was annoyed at that video at the time. Now it gets funnier and funnier every time I watch it. But Jameis Winston was just, he was Joe Flacco degaffing it back there. And it's starting to make me think that Kevin Stefanski wants to be a pass heavy offense the whole time. And they just were hamstrung by the QB for the last couple of years.
Well, dude, absolutely. I mean, I was actually talking about it this year. Their actual pass rate, even despite Watson playing like absolute dog shit, was actually really high this year. So with Jameis Winston, man, like I get it. It's some YOLO ball. You're probably going to see some bad turnovers off of like defenders' face masks going into a defensive end's hands. Like we're going to see that happen quite a few times in the next few weeks. But with that being said, if you're a Browns fan and you're looking for any glimmer of hope for your offense, you need that guy out there because Deshaun Watson was playing scared. Like that was the vibe I got. Deshaun Watson's shoulder was completely cooked. He was scared to take hits. And what we know from Jameis is he the smartest guy? Is he the most
He's the
most
goofiest
sound
motherfucker in the
decision-maker.
league.
No, exactly. Like, but what he will do is if a defender is in his rib cage eating a shot as he's delivering a 50-yard bomb, he's willing to do that. Sean Watson wasn't.
Yeah, and Jameis is loved by his teammates. And I would
Oh, yeah.
imagine that you run a little harder and you cut a little quicker. And when your quarterback is not Deshaun Watson, like anybody but Deshaun Watson, you do that stuff better for. I don't know that for fact that they hate Deshaun Watson in the Browns locker room, but you can see it on Sundays when he's not playing.
I hate to make a basketball analogy, but locker room morale and team morale is everything in sports in general. So you mentioned that with Jameis versus Deshaun, the vibes in the locker room. I mean, the example I can point to, it's very early in the season. Look at the fucking Los Angeles Lakers. Last year with Darvin Ham, the energy level, the press conferences, the energy was all fucking bad, all negative because they didn't trust their coach. And we've seen this year, they've found ways to win in each of those 3 games because they actually believe Reddick will make the adjustments to put them in a winning position. So with the Browns making it about football, Jameis Winston can put them in a winning position on offense. So now the defense is going to start playing better. Now the wide receivers are going to run crisper routes. Now everybody, the attention to detail is going to be at another level because they have somebody there that they trust will put them in a winning position. Like morale means everything in sports. If you don't think you can win, you're not playing your best effort.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw the 2019 Raptors with Nick Nurse. It was like you believed in that team. Everybody,
Sure.
Every teammate believed in each other. Everybody believed in number 2. Everybody believed in, the coaching staff and stuff. It factors in, and that's what's happening with the Browns right now. I do have a little bit of trepidation to say maybe this is Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers after the first game that they played, but at the same time, I think that Jameis at least gives them more upside as an offense than what Deshaun Watson did. And also, just like a side note, you get a gunslinger caliber, first round quarterback like Quinn Ewers or, somebody in the first round, maybe Cam Ward potentially, like one of those type of guys could be really fun in this offense.
Hear me out. I'm not even ready to say they should draft a quarterback if Winston has a good stretch at the end of the year. Because, I think they have a playoff-ready defense if they're fully healthy. I mean, Ward has been banged up. I know he's had some concussion issues. So, hopefully by next year, he's fully ready. Because, again, I think he's had 6 concussions in his career. It's pretty fucking bad with Denzel Ward. So, again, hopefully he's okay there. If Jameis Winston keeps playing the way he did against Baltimore, again, have they been a pass funnel defense? Absolutely. But is it still a pretty tough matchup in a divisional game with a 1-6 team that you go to beat a team that people were talking about as maybe a top 3 team in the league?
Yeah, and they just absolutely destroyed us on Monday night the week before. So it's a factor with the Browns. Again, I don't know if we're getting Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold could be a Brown if JJ is the future in Minnesota. That's what Jay Full says in the chat. I think that's definitely an interesting comparison that you could throw out there as well. Speaking of another Buccaneers related one, because they're the Buccaneers opponent this week, is the Kansas City Chiefs. What the hell do we do with this team right now? The aforementioned Bucs this week is who they play, and they're going to put up points because everybody puts up points on us. Mahomes' first passing touchdown of October happened this week, which is crazy because it's October 28th today. And only his 3rd game of 7 so far this year, we went over 250 plus passing yards. We saw Kelsey have his best day of the year on National Tight Ends Day. So I don't know what to do with the Chiefs, man. As a Mahomes and Kelsey stack holder in our flock league, I really don't know if this Chiefs offense is starting to maybe turn a corner. If this was just an easy matchup against the Raiders, they got another easy matchup against the Bucs. I'm curious to see what happens with this team because they're 7-0 and they haven't really had to use their offense to win games. And Isaiah Pacheco will probably be back 2 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now as well on the offensive side of the ball. So it's interesting. The Chiefs are a hard read for me right now.
Well, I mean, they're playing just good, sound football overall, and it's caused the overall fans. They're like the anti-Browns right now, where it's like Winston comes in, injects life, throw the ball across the yard, don't really care about bad. It's like, no, well, the Chiefs are trusting the ground game. They're trusting their defense. Mahomes is making the plays when he needs to, but they're just playing good fundamental football. And for fantasy, that's not always the best case because like we've seen with the Chiefs this year, it's been very up and down in terms of the fantasy production. On top of that, I mean, I talked about DeAndre Hopkins pick him at 37.5. He ended up going lower because he had 29 yards. But when you actually watch the game when D-Hop was on the field, he looked good, dude. Like, he looked good. So what that points to me is I don't think any of these guys are inferior players. Like, maybe, Kelsey isn't quite clearly the best tight end in the league. Like, I would say Kittle's better than him at this point, but he's still very much a top 3 overall tight end in the league. Mahomes, obviously, we know from a talent perspective, is the best quarterback. If you're getting a really good D-Hop, Xavier Worthy had a solid game in this game as well. Maybe we do see, like, when Juju Smith-Schuster comes back, a little bit more of a rotation at the wide receiver spot. Like, when I'm looking at this offense, it's got the makings of an offense that should be blowing everybody out in fantasy, but because they're just such a good, fundamental, sound football team all around, they haven't needed to.
Yeah, no, you said they're like the anti-Browns. I actually prefer to look at them as the super Steelers.
Yeah.
The Steelers play the same exact way, except the Chiefs are better at it because they have Mahomes and they have Andy Reid and they have, better weapons and a better defense. Well, not a better defense, but a more fundamentally sound, offense, defense, special teams in totality. So, the Chiefs are a really interesting team. It's weird to be 7-0 and be like, is the offense good or not? I don't know. But like this was Patrick Mahomes' first game over 18 fantasy points. His first game. For a guy that in 2022, and you could be like, oh, he lost his weapons and all this kind of stuff. Dude, in 2022, he had nobody. He had Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and like nothing else. And he was the MVP of the league, had over 5,000 yards and like 45 touchdowns that year. And then a couple scores on the ground as well, with basically just Travis Kelce out there. So it's crazy that like we're at a point now with Mahomes where he can win an MVP like that just 2 years ago when all of us expected him to take a step back without Tyreek Hill. And now it's like, okay, well, he doesn't look that good. He not throwing a lot of touchdowns. They're running the ball pretty well with Kareem Hunt right now. And I'm sure that'll continue when Pacheco comes back. It's a weird team. They're not throwing the ball like crazy. They were like 21st in neutral pass rate coming into this game.
And again, I guess this is just the basketball analogies live stream, because the way I kind of compare Mahomes in the regular season versus the playoffs is kind of like how LeBron's been, where it's like, we know he's an elite all-time player, but in the regular season, he doesn't have to do too much because he knows he can, even if he's a 6 seed, 7 seed, go on a run in the playoffs. And the level of overall production that we see between LeBron in the playoffs versus the regular season has been night and day. We've seen that with Mahomes. For example, last year, bad regular season year, what did he do in the playoffs? Like, what did Mahomes do in the playoffs last year?
He cooked.
Like, straight up.
I wonder if we're going to start to see, now that like the games matter more, like, because the games that are coming up in the regular season matter more than the ones that were earlier in the season. And I mean, the Chiefs are already well on their way of securing a first round bye and the number 1 seed in the AFC, but maybe we'll see Mahomes and Andy Reid unleash the ball a little bit more as the season goes along. And we saw this with Kelce last year too. Kelce was not very good for the first like 7-8 games. And then he decided to turn it on as the season went along.
Yeah, sorry, I see these. So the big different reactions to the LeBron take. So Jared is not happy with the LeBron, and then Lennox loves the LeBron. So he is not very happy. I will say though, if we exit in the first round this year, I'd be very disappointed because I really do believe in this team. But.
All right, there's no more basketball talk for the rest of the live stream.
More tight end talk, though.
Yes, more tight end talk. Takeaway number 2 for you, Danny. You got National Tight End Day. Doesn't disappoint here.
Dude, look at these scores. 18 tight ends went over double digits after, I mean, how many tight ends on the season are averaging double-digit points per game right now? Like, is it 6? Is it 7 right now?
I think it's 3. I think it's Kittle, Bowers, and Kraft, if I'm not mistaken, or McBride maybe.
Which is absurd. Like, you guys see these score lines. Obviously, shout out both of us starting top 3 options at tight end in the Flock League this week with Pitts and Kelce. Your boy, Cade Otton. I mean, I mentioned him actually in the sneaky starts video. He wasn't too sneaky because he finished as the 1 overall at the position. And moving forward, man, like McMillan had 7 targets in this game. It's not like you guys weren't throwing to the wide receiver position. It's just Cade Otton at this point is your best receiving option. Like, he's actually looked good.
No, he was great, and I'm very glad that he is my second highest rostered tight end in Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Mania draft. Dude, my tight end exposure is as good as it gets, in my opinion. My top 5 highest roster tight ends are Cade Otton, Hunter Henry, Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, and Cole Kmet, who are all like very good best ball picks at cost relative to where you had to draft them. Maybe not Kelce so far, but I think Kelce's starting to come along for the rest of the season. So I feel pretty good about my tight end rostership. All those guys are over like 15% for me.
Sorry, I have to adjust the comments. No, I'm not a Yankees fan, but you can take a guess.
He is a Red Sox fan, though, which is just as bad. He might as well, other than the Dodgers, I guess, would be like the other team that would be super annoying if he was a fan of. Like,
dude, the thing is like, I have different reasons for all of these fucking teams, and I've explained them to you, but like, the thing is, every time I feel like I have to defend it because people will just look at the name brand. And it's like, that's not why I didn't just go when I started watching these sports saying, who's the most popular team? Like, that's not every fan has a story for how you started watching the teams. With me for the Lakers, it was obviously Kobe in his prime. I was a big time Kobe fan. First jersey I bought, I was 9 years old. So we'll talk about that. Boston, same type of thing. I've never proclaimed to be a big baseball guy, but one of my close friends at the time was a Sox fan. I started watching them with him. And that was when Big Papi Ortiz was slugging home runs. And I just found it remarkable how just a big, I think he's Dominican, right? Big Dominican dude steps up to the plate. He's not running a lot, but what he's doing is fucking popping dingers. So I just love the way he played the game. Cowboys, I mean, you guys have heard that story multiple times. I don't have to rehash that. Michigan, first ever college game I went to was back in 2012 when they beat Michigan State on a walk-off field goal. Went there with my football team back in Pee Wee. So, like, I can contextualize all these stories, but you guys don't want to hear it because you would rather just talk about how I like all the popular teams.
Well, to be fair, the ones that annoy me are the ones that we have a Toronto team for. Like, that's the ones that annoy me. Like, not being a Raptors, Blue Jays, and Leafs fan are the ones that annoy me because I'm a fan of all three teams, and we both live the same equidistance away from Toronto. So that's why they annoy me. It's like, when you picked the Lakers, you could have been a Raptors fan. When you picked the Red Sox, you could have been a Blue Jays fan. I get those teams weren't very good when you decided to be them, but like, you don't have a choice. You're from you're not quite from the GTA, but you're pretty close to Toronto to the point that you should just be a fan of Toronto teams, is my opinion.
Well, the thing is too, it's like, it's not like the only real sport at the time when I started like fully getting into sports. Cause again, like obviously I was always into sports, but like once you're like 7 or 8, you start becoming very cognizant of sports. I would say like when you're like 5, 6 years old, yeah, you're a fan of sports, but you're not really recognizing what's going on. So around that time, like the only figure in my life that like actually was like a diehard fan. So my family was all Leafs fans and I couldn't stand it. So I was a Habs fan because of that. Like that's that story. The other one was just the Cowboys. Like when my stepdad came in, he was a Cowboys fan. So we watched that team together. And that's why I became a Cowboys fan. Everything else, though, it's like, well, nobody had a strong NBA lenience. Nobody had a strong baseball lenience. Nobody had a strong college football, college basketball, etc. So for me, it's like when you're 8, 9 years old and you're fully contextualizing the sport and picking which teams, like especially in other sports like college football. I became a Michigan fan, obviously, with my Pee Wee team, like I said. College basketball, I was a big-time John Wall fan. So when I started watching college basketball was the year that Brandon Knight lost to Kemba Walker in the Final Four. So, like, that's why I became a Kentucky fan, not just because, Kentucky basketball, big brand. It's like, no, like, when I started watching them, Brandon Knight was going off in that March Madness tournament. Like I have stories to all these. Like,
I don't know. You could defend it all you want, but you still look like a bandwagon to everybody in the comment section right now.
They could say what they want.
Let's move on past this nonsense of Danny. I literally marked it nonsense in the timestamp so people can skip over it. But let's get into some of the buy low. Like, so the buy lows we've been talking about, some of them like all came to fruition in 1 week this week because we saw CeeDee Lamb monster game. Obviously, Cowboys lose, but CeeDee Lamb has a monster game, like 39 PPR points or something like that. Absolute monster performance.
It was coming.
Our thumbnail guy last week was Marvin Harrison Jr., who had his best game as a pro so far, 23.1 PPR points, looked like a true alpha, making plays in the end zone, making plays on the sideline, exactly what we all thought we were getting when we drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. Then we have James Cook, who I talked about in the running back tier list video on Saturday, was a good buy low. He has the number 1 performance of any running back on the slate, 28.3 PPR points. I actually, in the Flock League chat, I was like, hey, don't worry about it, Badake. You could still beat Mason because James Cook's legacy day is coming. And he had a monster game.
Which video was that? The running back trade targets video?
Yeah, running back tier list. I talked about him as I highlighted him in the usage, and I said he was one of the better buy lows still at running back. We didn't talk about him in the trade targets video, but Devon Achane we've been talking about for weeks. I've been talking about him on my TikTok for weeks, and I mean this was easy to see coming. Tua came back, so 26.7 PPR points is great, but those 4 guys were the top end guys for sure.
You mentioned it. I mean, my thumbnail, we'll see how George Pickens does tonight, but George Pickens was on the thumbnail of my wide receiver rankings tier list video. So if he has another big game, I guess we're just, the prophecy is the way the young kids call it?
Yeah. And then a couple other guys too. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, I talked about 2 weeks ago in the running back trade targets video, 79% snap share for him, 23.5 PPR points. I personally bought Calvin Ridley in our Flock League, and I thought he was a half decent buy low for wide receiver needy teams. And he had 10 plus targets in the first half, and Danny Ladd 21 legacy day as well. And then I also offhandedly mentioned Raheem Mostert as somebody that was a half decent buy low as well.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I just isn't this a fantasy football show? What the heck is happening? Talking about different. Yeah, obviously, I mean, Wanye and Jared aren't new, but if you guys are new and you've never seen us show up before, this is obviously mostly fantasy football. But these Monday recaps, like we're getting these thoughts off our mind. Obviously, mostly football related, but we will go on our tangents every now and then, and we'll make sure we can at least timestamp it for you guys if you're just solely looking for the fantasy football talk.
Yeah, like I mean, there was a few other things that happened this week that kind of made me feel validated. I don't know about you. Like the week 8 slate was obviously bad for our own like favorite fantasy or our own favorite teams or whatever. But I was like, you know what? Marvin looking great. That made me feel good. And, you know, James Cook looking like he was healthy this week made me feel good. And like, I feel like our calls this week were half decent. So, I mean, we're going to eat crow 90% of the time. It feels like when it comes to, you know, I was wrong about this or wrong about that. But this week felt like a good week.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll go into my third takeaway here because obviously you mentioned the buy lows. Weird week 8 stats and controversies. I kind of piled a bunch together because there's just a lot of things. Like when I was looking through all the game scores, like things that I thought I could bring up. But first one, Jets feeding 2 1-yard passes on the goal line for touchdowns and Braylon Allen sniping Breece Hall on the goal line. 3 separate potential touchdown opportunities for Breece Hall ripped from his hands. Jets. You got a 5+ yards per carry back in your backfield. He is the best player on your offense, even with Wilson and Adams on the field. And we're not giving them the fucking football. Like, what are we doing? Like that was the most infuriating game to watch, maybe outside of the Cowboys game, to be honest. Like, if you were watching Jets Patriots with a rooting interest at all, and for me, it was with Breece Hall because he's literally the foundation, my stud RB1 on my team. It's bothersome when he's getting sniped by Braylon Allen because, oh, we're not good in short yardage situations. So we may as well just throw the short yardage back out there. It's like Braylon Allen was dust yesterday. He was awful in that game. Like,
yeah, I have him in my home league. I have him in our listener league as well. So even though I was facing him against you in this week, I was pretty pissed. And going into Monday Night Football, I need George Pickens and Najee Harris to combine for less than 28 points. And I wouldn't need that if Breece Hall would just ran in a couple touchdowns like he could have easily done.
Yeah, and like, again, it would be very unlikely for me to come back in our matchup, but if Breece Hall gave me 8-chan level production this week, maybe 17+ points, I'd actually have a chance. So it's annoying. It's annoying. So I'll skip the second one at the end because I do want to mention at the end because I do have a graphic to show you guys. Tyreek Stevenson obviously loses the Bears game on a Hail Mary. I'm not sure if you guys watched that, but what it reminded me of is, have you seen the college football 25 clip of like the North Carolina cornerback? He's pumping up the crowd, this and that. Snap goes, he gets dusted on a vertical. That is the first tweet I saw after the Tyreek Stevenson play. This guy's on the side pumping up the fans, like, you know, this and that. And his assignment on that play was Noah Brown, who scored the touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. And like the game isn't over, bro. Like, what do you like? There's a play left. Like, how like you're getting flamed in Monday walkthroughs and film breakdown. Like you're getting flamed by the whole team.
He actually went on Twitter to apologize to all of Bears fans because
he doesn't have to apologize to the Bears fans.
He doesn't have to
his teammates. Is who
like
he does apologize to.
He absolutely doesn't have to do that. But like also, it's like. Not a good look. Not a good look. Dolphins collapse. I mean, this was like such a Dolphins game, to be honest. Like they were up all game, and then I checked the final score. Arizona won on a last second field goal. Cool. Like 28-27.
I don't know how the Dolphins lost that game, man. Like I have no idea. They could not stop 28 the whole game. Like Achane, every time he touched the ball was like 15 yards every single time. And
did he go with like 9 for 97 on the ground?
Yeah, he was outstanding the whole game. Yeah. Like they could not stop him.
For sure. I mean, this one too, Lions 52 points on only 94 passing yards. Like
that's crazy.
Like they're very clearly the best team in the league right now, right? Like very clearly.
Yeah. If we did power rankings, they're one for sure.
Yeah. They might like, again, we'll see with KC because they are undefeated. You got to give them their flowers. You probably have to put them in the same tier as Detroit, but no doubt in my mind, if Detroit played KC next week, it would probably be like a 15-point game. Like that's how Detroit's been playing.
Yeah. No, that wouldn't shock me one bit. This is just a quick last sidetrack that I'll put out here. What are your thoughts on like randomly making a second channel for just NFL content? Like where we do power rankings and free agency stuff. And like, I don't know why that thought popped into my head, but I feel like that might be kind of fun. It's like we talk fantasy all the time, obviously.
I've thought about that, and offhandedly, again, never seriously, but like me and Ron have like, yeah, like random channel for fucking like if you wanted like game Madden or COD or something like that, you just put it on a random channel. Like I've been thinking about that, and I was actually gonna bring up to you like NFL content because I mean we're not just only fantasy football players. Obviously, we are fantasy football, like that's the thing we take most seriously. But guys, like I know for me, I know for you as well. When I am not like doing content, doing research, recording a video, this and that. Like I am absorbing so much content across sports, like NFL content, NBA content, like everything. Right. So I constantly have a video on pretty much because I mean, I work from home.
Danny's
so like,
he was born in 2000. He has no attention span is what he's admitting to right now.
Pretty much. The other, but by the way, I do think that's a really good idea. The other thing, Green Bay walk-off field goal after the Love injury, and quietly Malik Willis looked pretty good. I mean, 4 for 5.
He's looked good all year.
Yeah, so kudos to them. I mean, Green Bay's just finding ways to win games, and I know Jared's in the chat. He's probably going to love me saying this because, I mean, he's probably already commented 40 times on the stream. Shout out you, Jared. But yeah, and Nate's actually in the chat too. So we got two Packers fans. So really does hurt me talking flowers about the Packers because they're probably my third biggest hate team in the league after the Eagles and Niners, I would say.
Yeah. What more than the Giants?
Yeah, I don't really hate the Giants.
Honestly. I mean, I guess in your lifetime, the Giants haven't really been that good.
Like, it's just there's 2 separate times that I've really hated the Giants. And it was obviously the 2007 playoffs, divisional round. Tony Romo wasn't great in that game. We lost the divisional round when they went on to beat the Patriots. And then it was 2011, actually, when they went on their Super Bowl run. We played them final week of the year. Winner gets into the playoffs. And that was when Victor Cruz went off in 2011. So I was an 11-year-old lad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, since 2012, they haven't been relevant, though. So I guess that's probably the majority of your functional brain capacity times of being a human being. So that's probably why you don't really hate the Giants that much.
We'll contextualize it like this, too. So we haven't lost to them since 2017 when Dak has started. When Dak has been a starter, we have not lost to them since 2017. He's lost to the Giants 2 times in his career. Both came in his rookie year. I mean, speaking of the Cowboys, obviously, this was actually the final weird stat controversy. We were both high on Rico Dowdle this week. Rico Dowdle, 2 hours before the game, gets announced with an illness and is out. I have Rico Dowdle in my starting running back 2 spot in my home league with no other real starting options available. Because obviously, again, if he was in my flex, maybe you pick up a wide receiver, that's fine. He's in my RB2 slot. So there's 2 games left. It's the 49ers, the Cowboys, it's the Giants, it's the Steelers. So I have to pick up a running back from one of those games. I'm desperate. In my home league, the guy I'm playing against changes his name to Danny Ladd's daddy after the Dowdle news. So I'm already ticked off. Again, I had a little bit of a mid 4 p.m. nap like at halftime. I woke up and I see fucking Rico Dowdle's out. Great. He changes his name. I'm fuming. I pick up and throw in Isaac Guerrero, who scores 19.2 PPR points. And now I have a chance to win. And for what it's worth, I mean, 3 tush-push touchdowns and Cortland Sutton's best game. And don't get me started about Travis Kelce. I play him in multiple leagues. Like, my team is better than his. But without Rico Dowdle, I thought I was legitimately having no chance to win this game. So I plug in Guerrero. Now I have a chance. And I literally just replied, weird considering I have 3 players left in an inactive running back. And then I just realized what was going on. Also, shout out, score that asshole dickhead because Guerrero at the end could have scored a second touchdown, but decided to just fall on his ass at the 4-yard line. So,
hey, he's a great teammate. Don't be slandering
he did his
Isaac
job.
Guerrero sliding down.
I'm not going to slander him because he got me 19.2 PPR points. I was expected like 2 points. Like, because I'm like, okay, Jordan Mason's starting. Maybe he gets a couple carries here and there. No, Jordan Mason goes down, and I just hit on a 19.2 PPR running back out of thin air. So
yeah, I saw somebody tweet out that Jordan Mason is a farce created by Vegas to go down during games so that people lose a bunch of money, which I thought was really funny because that's like the 3rd time he's done that now. In prime time spots, pretty much every time he's just like not.
It's always with the shoulder. It's always with the shoulder.
Well, in week 1 too, remember McCaffrey was ruled out really late, and then he became like a stud. So he's just like this impossible to figure out figure in running back lore.
He's a pyramid scheme. As soon as you buy
it, literally a pyramid scheme.
As soon as you buy it, he just goes down. As soon as you don't buy it, he's just going off.
Yeah. Anyways, we have 2 more takeaways. They're both kind of related, so we can kind of just group them together. I talked about how the AFC South is like a weird division right now because the Jaguars like literally lost their 3 starting receivers. Kirk for the year, Thomas maybe for a game or two, Gabe Davis maybe for a couple games as well. Then you also have Stephon Diggs going out with the ACL tear. Most likely, it hasn't been confirmed. I think that's what it's going to end up being. And of course, Nico Collins is still not back. And then you have the Tennessee Titans, who are a laughing stock at this point in time. And then you have somehow the worst quarterback in the division is Anthony Richardson.
I mean, I'll just talk about it. I am very concerned about the ARich experiment at this point. He would need to legitimately have a Josh Allen level ascension, which again, I'm not completely ruling out because he has the physical makeup, the traits to be able to, but he's just physically incapable of throwing an accurate football right now. He's poised in the pocket. I feel like he makes good decisions, but when the ball comes out of his hand, it's just not where it needs to be. That's what I've noticed when I've been watching these Colts games. And I mean, the data does back it up. Since 1970, so the current pace that Anthony Richardson is on, he has a 44.4% completion percentage. Since 1970, if that sustains across the rest of the season, he will have a bottom 15 completion percentage across a full year. And we're talking about, like, look at all the dates of all those other guys. Outside of Achilles Smith, they're all in the fucking 70s and 80s, dude. All of them.
And also Gary Marangi, I don't know why I know that name, but I do know it offhandedly from like random NFL film documentaries of like people just making fun of quarterbacks like Gary Marangi. I'm pretty sure at one point he may have played for like the expansion Bucs or something like that, and that's why I know his name. But regardless, it's bad. I mean, Doug Williams randomly on that list as well, which is kind of
Terry
funny.
Bradshaw shout out.
A lot of busts on here is one thing I would like to point out. You got I mean, Jim Zorn eventually became a good quarterback, but and Terry Bradshaw's of course in the Hall of Fame. But like Jay Schrader I believe he was the one who was caught gambling at Ohio State, wasn't he? Or am I thinking of Art Schleister? That's what I'm thinking of. But Achilles Smith, absolute bust in the NFL. I'm gonna go on record and say this. Maybe I'll look stupid later. I don't think Anthony Richardson's good, man. I don't. I've been saying this for like weeks now that I just think Anthony Richardson is a bad quarterback. And he could get better. He's 21 years old. I get all that stuff, but like he doesn't look like the type of quarterback that's going to just like get better all of a sudden. Is it just me?
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious how my camera froze on you because that image is pretty. I'm frozen for you too. I'm just like smirking.
You're looking up at your dad after the week that we had in Flock League.
Real. I mean, hopefully I can match you back in the playoffs. Let me just quickly
here. I'll pop you into the back seat for a second here. But yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, please. If there's a Colts fan in here, please tell me if there's anything that I should feel hope about Anthony Richardson, because I'm literally like looking at a quarterback who can't complete a pass. It's not that he's inaccurate. It's not that he's erratic. It's not that he misses a couple throws here and there. It's that every throw is off target. The ones that are on target, his receivers like have a hard time catching. You know, that like stupid, take that people have where they're like, he throws a catchable ball about all these like draft quarterback, like name a quarterback who went in the 7th round of the NFL draft who threw a catchable ball, like Jake Haener or something, or Stetson Bennett or one of these type of quarterbacks. The opposite statement applies to Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, what I see with him, again, do I think he could turn it around? I think like I said, he's got the physical makeup. I don't think he's actually bad in the pocket, to be honest. Like I said, sack avoidance, making the right decision. Like he's got the intangibles to turn it around. It's just, God damn, like I've never seen a quarterback this inaccurate. Straight up.
Yeah, randomly Josh Uche got traded to the Chiefs just now as well for a 6th round pick
for them. That's a good pick.
Anyways, but yeah, that's where I'm at with Richardson, man. Like, I'm ready to eat crow if a year and a half from now he looks like a franchise QB and he's like, Jalen Hurts 2.0 or whatever. But like, I just don't see it, man. I just think that we're gonna get to the end of the season. We're gonna go into next season being like, is Richardson good? Is he not good? Maybe he's even got competition behind him to start. Like, I don't think he's a good quarterback, man. Like, I don't think he can play. I think he can manage the pocket. I think he can run, but he's also always hurt or always banged up, and he can't like manage an offense outside of just like making a first read throw or running, and again making his first read throw inaccurately with bad ball placement most of the time.
Yeah, because it's not even just the Justin Fields thing, where Justin Fields there's a lot above the shoulders that he's lacking right now that's causing him to not be the quarterback that we saw coming out of Ohio State. Like for me with Richardson, it's like he does the little things well, and then the ball comes out of his hands and it's disgusting. It's straight. It's disgusting. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, he has the arm talent to be able to make big time throws when he needs to, but actually fitting a ball into the keyhole, he just can't do. He's incapable of it. And you have to be able to do that if you're an NFL quarterback. Because quite frankly, as we know, the separation in the NFL versus college is night and fucking day. You miss your spot by fucking a foot in the NFL, that's getting picked off and housed.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. One thing, this is a weird take that just popped into my head, but like, you know how back in the day, and just generally speaking, people would be like, who's the perfect backup quarterback to your young top 5 pick to help him learn? What would people normally say? Like Andy Dalton or Alex Smith, right? People would be like, oh, veteran quarterback. He can teach him the ropes. He can show him how to do things. I'm starting to think that's not true, because when these players get injured or they miss a couple games here and there, we realize that the veteran quarterback is just better at this point in time than the young quarterback is. And we've seen that in Carolina. We've seen that in Indianapolis. It's almost better if you just draft a day 3 quarterback behind the rookie who can, like, the day 3 quarterback is learning at a rapid pace how the NFL works and how to, like, you know, defenses work and stuff. Then you maybe even also have like a Kirk Cousins RG3 situation where if the starting quarterback has an injury issue, you have this like 4th round guy who's been kind of marinating behind him. It's, I don't know. I just look at the way these young quarterbacks are.
That's a good point.
Well, not true for percent. Yeah, that is a very good point. That is a very good point. But I don't know. When you have these, especially if it's a good scheme and there's good weapons like what the Colts have, the veteran quarterback comes in and he makes the locker room turn on the young quarterback by being better than the young quarterback. And you don't want your locker room thinking the backup is better than the starter.
Honest to God, like, if you're going to go to the veteran, you know, stopgap quarterback route, like, I think like the Cooper Rush level is about the backup that you got to look for, where it's like, you don't actually expect him to take over the starting job at any point, but like, he's good morale for the backup to learn from. Like a Cooper Rush, or like, I mean, like Cody Kessler had a little bit of a
Blaine Gabbert.
You know what I mean? The guys like that. It's like, you bring in the Andy Dalton types like that have a pedigree, or Joe Flacco types that have a pedigree. Like, it's almost like it's inhibiting the quarterback confidence, like you said. But if you bring like the one step lower, like immobile veteran quarterback that has maybe started like Chase Daniel would have been the prime example in his prime. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The
Colt
Joe
McCoy.
Flacco's, the Joe Flacco's of the world should be on contending teams. Where, like, if Mahomes goes down, you have Joe Flacco. Like, that's where because there's not a quarterback controversy in that situation. But if Mahomes misses time, you have a quarterback that's capable. Like, I don't know why teams don't structure their backup quarterback situation like that. The other thing too is, like, if you think about Josh Allen's second year, if Nathan Peterman's not his backup, like if current day Joe Flacco is his backup, are people starting to have that concern that Josh Allen's never going to get there and then his confidence is affected? That's what I mean. Like, because it can work in bad ways if the whole locker room suddenly decides that your quarterback is better than, or your backup quarterback's better than this young starter that you have.
Hear me out, by the way. I see Nathan brought this up. When you actually think about the similarities between Lance and Richardson, like, it's actually pretty remarkable.
Oh yeah.
Third overall draft pick to a thought of genius coach, Shane Steichen versus Kyle Shanahan. Mm-hmm. Very good supporting cast. Gets hurt in his rookie year. I believe Lance was in his rookie year or his second year where he got hurt. Second year, because he
was sat his rookie year for Garoppolo, and then his second game or whatever of his second year he got hurt. Yeah,
like, and I thought when we were watching Lance out of college, like, he made good decisions. Like, he had like 2 interceptions in his draft year, right? So
I think he only had 1.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, he was playing efficient ball. He was making good decisions. But like Nate said, he throws everything with the fastball. And it's like, you have to know how to lay your throws. You'd have to know how to throw a touch. And like, that's what Brock Purdy did to win the job, straight up. It's like, he came in, he managed the offense, and he knew when to he knew when to change up his pitch. It's like, you don't have to just throw the fastball. You can throw the touch ball. You can, for example, you're throwing these corner routes to George fucking Kittle. Why are you missiling it on a beam? Like, throw it up there and let a guy like Kittle go up and reach for it. You know what I mean? Like, Brock at least understands how to make those throws. And again, I've never been the biggest Brock Purdy fan, but it's almost like my thoughts on Purdy have remained constant. When last year he was talked about as a top 5 quarterback, you know, 4th in MVP, like, that's why I'm like, okay, that's a little too much. But now that like everybody's like talking shit about Brock because he's not playing as good as last year, it's like, no, like, I can actually defend him. Like, he's making plays when he needs to in this offense. Like, I think he's very clearly a top 12 to 15 quarterback.
Oh, you don't have to convince me. I've been Brock Purdy all day. And you want to talk about a guy who throws a catchable ball? That's Brock Purdy.
I mean, like, I would say he, like, at this point, 10 to 12 range, like maybe even like with him and Kirk Cousins around that area. Like again, like I would have to actually map it out, but like are you
make the
taking
argument
either over Trevor Lawrence, like them or
right
Trevor
now?
Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that like because these guys bring different things to the table, it would depend on your scheme, depend on your offense, depend on your weapons. But like he's, in my opinion, as good as Kyler Murray is. Kyler Murray is better at running and has more, outside of the structure type of ability, but Brock Purdy is way better inside a structure that kind of makes up for it. So depending on your scheme, depending on what type of offense you're running, you can make the argument he's a top 12 quarterback in the league. So yeah, I mean, we're on off the rails a little bit. Let's bring it back and continue to talk about Anthony Richardson, actually, because we're going to talk about some dynasty trades here. And we'll start with Diego since we were just talking about Richardson. He trades away Richardson, a projected late first and a late second, in exchange for a projected early to mid first and a projected early to mid first in 2027 as well. So you offload Anthony Richardson, you give up later picks. Again, the 2025 class, I think both of us would expect to be better than the 2026 class, at least as it currently stands. It looks like the 2025 class is going to have a little bit more talent in it. But if you're getting early projected picks, is this enough for you to move off of the Anthony Richardson experience?
Well, let's price gauge Anthony Richardson, because obviously you're taking 2 projected 26 and 27 first over a late projected 2025 first, and I'm assuming second because that might be the same owner. So if we're talking about the difference between the first and the second, does Anthony Richardson make up the difference between the first and the second in this, knowing the context of where they're going to be placed at? Like that's the question we have to have. Is Anthony Richardson a top 4 round starter pick at this point? Is he a top 6 round starter pick?
Not.
What is Anthony Richardson's value on the market? Because when we're actually going through the quarterback position, is he a top 18 dynasty quarterback right now?
No, I don't have him in that range.
So then we're looking at it like, would you take Anthony Richardson or, I mean, let's go back to Dynasty here. Just give me a moment. I'm going to
I'll tell you where I have him ranked to save you some time right now. He is my quarterback 20 in Dynasty right now. And to be honest, this guy just had a great week this week, and he's a young quarterback also. Who would you rather have in Dynasty?
You say Bo Nix.
Bo Nix or Anthony Richardson?
I mean, depends what your quarterback situation is, honestly. Like if it's your 3, I'm taking Richardson. If it's your 2, I'm taking Nix.
Well, to Diego's point in his question, he does already have Burrow, Murray, and May, so this is a very easy trade to make given the context of his team. But I would make the argument for sure that I would rather have Bo Nix, and I think you could even go as far as to say you would rather re-roll into Michael Penix.
See, I'm not willing to go that far yet, simply because we know Penix is at least not going to play this year and possibly next year. Like Kirk Cousins has played really good ball, and the Falcons are 5-3. Like it's close. Like Kirk Cousins showed no signs of the Achilles. Like, did you see that scramble he had on 3rd down against you guys?
Don't remind me that we're allowing Kirk Cousins to rush for 15 yards after an Achilles tear at 36 years old.
Sorry, but like he looks good. Like he looks good.
I think it's a foregone conclusion though that you would take Goff, Tua, McCarthy, Mayfield, all those guys over Richardson. I think that's a foregone conclusion that he's not in that range anymore.
I mean, okay. The other question I have: are you taking him or Geno?
So the reason it's just impossible to compare that is because it's a totally different thing that you'd be looking for, which is young upside or like current production. I think the better question is how much longer until he's Justin Fields?
A year.
I think he could get there before the season's over.
The thing with him, though, and why I'm not willing to fully tank him yet, is that I know if he has one big game, dude, the market's just going to completely forget about the sample size that we saw.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think so?
Think if he has a couple good games in a row, that could happen. But
like how BTJ out 2 to 4 weeks, apparently, Nate's saying in the chat.
Yeah, that's basically what Dr. Moore said would be the timeline. With that, we're getting close to the point that we're like, okay, is it Anthony Richardson or Bo Nix? Is it Anthony Richardson or Michael Penix? Is it Anthony Richardson or Sam Darnold that you would rather have in Dynasty right now? Like
I have Darnold the same tier right now. Yeah, like, and I mean, like, for example, we were talking about like a couple of weeks ago, like Darnold's probably an early to mid 2nd round valuation at this point. Like Richardson's probably around there. Like I'm not paying the first for this guy.
No. How much, if somebody had Justin Fields and they were going to give you Justin Fields plus what gets you to Anthony Richardson? A second? Is that all it is?
Very easily, yeah. I would sell Richardson for Fields in a second, yeah.
You'd sell him for Fields in a second. So he's got to be down there then. Like, I would not sell Bo Nix for Fields in a second.
Yeah, I mean, like that's close. Like that's about the Nix value.
I think, dude, Bo Nix has 7 touchdowns to 1 interception in the last 4 games. And
no, trust me. No,
very
Nix
solid.
Nix has been good. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just like, it's close, man. Like, how many quarterbacks are worth a first in Dynasty, though, is what I'm kind of going at. Like, do you think Nix
Nix is probably the last one that is worth a first, in my opinion.
Well, Nix or Mayfield?
20 for me.
Nix or Mayfield?
Oh, I have Mayfield at 15, dude. He's way higher than Nix.
15?
Yeah, Keep Trade Cut has him at like 12.
Holy fuck.
Baker's got a 3-year contract with good weapons and a great offensive coordinator. He's right at the top of that, like Tua, Jared Goff. He's right there. Like I personally,
I'll move over Tua.
You're not going to like this take.
No, you can't.
I swear to God, I'm not trying to start an argument.
Can't do that,
but I would rather have Baker Mayfield than Dak
You
Prescott.
can't do that. You can't do that.
Okay,
that's insane.
Again, Keep Trade Cut agrees with me.
It's Keep Trade Cut, dude. They treat Dynasty like a redraft.
The market agrees with me, is what I mean to say.
The Keep Trade Cut market, where
all of our creators on our site also have Mayfield ahead. I actually already checked this once.
That's insane, man. Dak's got to fucking remind you guys to stop this.
He might have to, but I mean, Baker Mayfield is 2 years younger than Dak, has contract insulation with the team that he's with. He has a real.
He's a good option. I think people are just forgetting what Dak is. Like, that's straight up. Like, are we really letting Mike McCarthy and a 2007 offense really distract us from what he is?
I don't disagree, to be honest. I think Dak is a pretty good buy low in Dynasty. I just prefer Mayfield. It's more of a pro Mayfield take.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I have Mayfield at 17, Dak at 13. So it's not like I'm saying Mayfield doesn't deserve to be high, but I mean,
they're literally 15, 16 for me. So they're like back to back. But now that Tua is back, and if you're a rebuilder that you wanted to go after McCarthy, I could make the argument for those guys over Dak as well.
Where are you ranking Lawrence?
I have Lawrence at 12, but I honestly don't know what to do with him.
See, because like I'm like looking at it right now. I think first of all, 12's too high. I think actually, to be honest, at least Dak and Mayfield should be above him.
I don't think so, because Lawrence is young and he's got rushing upside. I don't think he should be below those guys.
Yeah, but
he's got a young stud receiver now that he's got it tethered to him.
Yeah, and I mean he's got a good weapon score. I mean, it hasn't really resulted in much, but he has a good weapon score.
I moved Lawrence below Purdy just now, so that would be he's 13 now for me, and I have Herbert below him right now too, because Herbert is giving you absolutely nothing.
That's another one. Like Purdy, what are you doing with him?
I've had him at like 12 roughly for like the last 2 years. Like, he hasn't moved really.
But like, why should he be a few spots higher than Dak and Baker Mayfield?
Because he's like 24 years old.
Fair. I don't know.
He's gonna get extended by the 49ers too, in my opinion.
And again, like you heard me earlier, I think he's a solid quarterback. I just think like that discrepancy is a little too high.
He represents
where do you have Herbert?
Think about Purdy and Dak and Mayfield on a weekly basis, where we're ranking them in our weekly rankings, and is it different? Usually, it's whoever has a better matchup. So I'll take the guy who's like 6 years younger.
I'm also projecting a potential coaching upgrade, which could be like basically.
Okay, but is it going to be as good as Kyle Shanahan? Because that's what Purdy.
No,
is.
But I'm saying like we're comparing right now Dak with McCarthy and this 2003 offense to the San Francisco 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, which with Liam Cohen has come in and looked phenomenal. Basically, what I'm saying, like if Dak gets like Ben Johnson or something, dude. Like we are looking at a top 5 offense in the NFL.
If that happens, I'm still probably not ranking him over Purdy, because Purdy is younger and already has that stuff.
No, that's fair. But Brandon Ayuk could have an extended absence, obviously with the ACL injury. Again, I don't know how complex
He's still got Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey, and Pearsall, brother.
Trust me. I mean, good weapon score. But with that being said, even with all those guys they were producing, I mean, Dak last year was outproducing him. This year hasn't been good. I'm going to be honest there, but I don't know. I think we're all overreacting as a market on that.
I think Dak is a buy in Dynasty right now. I'm not going to disagree with you. I personally prefer other guys over him. But anyways, let's talk about the other Dynasty trades that we have here. We have one from Jay Ocho. Shout out. He actually makes like a bunch of Twitter content. I'm in a Dynasty league with him. 12-team PPR Superflex, half tight end premium, half bonus for first downs. He's a contender, and he sends away Chris Godwin, who obviously got hurt, Dak Prescott, who we just talked about.
These are late ones is what I'm getting from that.
Projected late ones. And then you get Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, a third and a fourth. So
Cooper equals Godwin.
It seems steep to me, but thankfully you have the best asset in the deal.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, again, I'm a huge Dak guy. So Dak is probably worth, like, if we were to contextualize this, Dak at this point, another first on his own, right? 2025. I mean, you're taking Genty over him, the asset. You're probably taking 10. I would say probably about a mid first is where Dak's value is. And then Godwin at this point with the ACL. I mean, where you or not ACL, ankle, my apologies. Where are you ranking Godwin? Like, he's not worth a first. He's probably not worth
an early second. He's older, so he was barely worth a first.
I would say mid to late second about is where the value is with the context of the injury.
I'd say early to mid second. I mean, the way I look at it is, would I take, if I was a Josh Allen manager, would I take Dak Prescott and 2-1s for Josh Allen? And the answer is no, I would not.
Yeah, I mean, like that. Like I said, that would be contextualized to 3-1s for Josh Allen, and like we said, 2 of those ones are
Cooper versus Godwin, because Cooper's healthy,
I would take Cooper.
Is a wash. Yeah,
I would take
it's
Cooper.
A wash. If not, you would take Cooper as a contender. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, would I take Dak Prescott and 2-1s for Josh Allen? Plus, you add in the extra late round picks just to sweeten it up a little bit. And to me, the answer is I would take the Josh Allen side of this trade just because you're getting the best asset in the deal, and you could make the argument worth the whole package himself.
Oh, trust me. Like I would also take the Josh Allen side because, like we said, like Josh Allen to me is still worth at least 3 early to mid projected ones, and we already know 2 of those are going to be mid to late because you say you're a contender. Dak Prescott, like we said, is about a mid projected one at this point. So just off of the value of Dak and the ones, I would still take Josh Allen. And then, like we said, you're getting Cooper a third and a fourth for Godwin. Very good deal, especially knowing the context as a contender. You're getting off an injured player for somebody that, although he didn't have the greatest second game in Buffalo, we know his snaps are going to go up. We know he's the best separator on the team. I think Shakir's a really good, solid chain mover on this offense, but for the Bills to be at their ceiling of an offense, they're going to need Cooper to be the number one, and I do think he will eventually be that.
Yeah, I'm starting to, like, I'm not going to...
Coleman looks good too, man.
I'm not going to write off Amari Cooper because I've done it before, and I think he's going to have better games going forward, but am I going to be shocked if all 3 of these guys have 22% target shares? No. I think Shakir is a good enough player to do that. I think Coleman's a good enough player to do that. And I think Cooper is, on the back 9 of his career to some degree. So he's probably not the same level of, target commander that we've seen in the past, man. Like Khalil Shakir in his healthy games this year, 29% target share, 23% target share. Week 3 was when he first suffered the injury, but 21% target share in that game, 29% target share in week 2, 14% target share in week 1. He's been over like a 20% target share, like 4 or 5 games that he's played where he's been fully healthy.
You want to hear something to cringe about? You remember in best ball season when there was a serious debate between Shakir and Samuel?
Wild that was the case. I'm glad I was on the Shakir side of history. Just with these receivers in general, I think Buffalo receivers, I was always team Shakir because he was the cheapest. That was my thought process. I thought they all had pretty similar range of outcomes, and I was like, you know what, Shakir's the cheapest, and I like him the most.
Yeah, and I mean, a shout out to Keon Coleman. So 2 of his 3 highest snap shares in the last 2 weeks, 18 plus PPR points in both those games, and with a true separator on the outside of Amari Cooper, with a chain mover in the slot like Shakir. They just need him to be big body, go up and get it player. Like we saw that in the red zone last week. We saw it in the red zone yesterday that Allen puts it high. People are going to talk about the separation he creates. Like, is Keon Coleman going to win with a ton of separation in the NFL? No. But what he's going to do,
no matter how good he gets as a player, he'll never be a good separator.
But he doesn't need to be if you can attack the football in the air like he does. And he's got Josh Allen at quarterback. Like he was like the most overthought prospect because people want to point out the production profile, separation metrics. Oh, like he's never going to be a true number 1. It's like you can be a 1B or 2 for Josh Allen and be a very productive fantasy player. Also, on top of that, it's hilarious because we went into the year being like, oh, Kincaid's going to be the target earner on this team. He's going to be the lead target. It's like, dude, he's the 4th or 5th option in the passing game. Like, and if you watch Kincaid, if you had Kincaid last year, like, we talked about this last week. We could have saw this coming. Absolutely. He did not look good last year.
No, he didn't. I mean, he has 8.6 PPR points this year. First game for him since week 3 of over 12 PPR points this week. And he finally finds the end zone, which I believe was the first time he's done that all season. Maybe he scored a touchdown earlier in the year. But I think it was pretty telling that last year he couldn't really command a whole lot of targets. Like he was commanding targets, like, and he still is now. Like he has what is his target share on the season right now? He has a 21% target share this year. Like, and I'm pretty sure that's actually second behind Shakir on the team. So he's commanding targets. He's just like, they're not really valuable targets.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like what would be his comparable? Because like, I'm looking across the league, like who's just like a dump off tight end that gets volume, but doesn't actually do anything with it. I guess he's just
Otten, except now he's doing something with it.
Who would have thought going into the year that Kincaid would be Walmart Cade Otten?
I saw Chess Liam get into business from a lot of people in the comments because he refuses to admit Kincaid's a bad pick at ADP from where he was going because he's a Bills fan, obviously, and he's been a big Dalton Kincaid guy for years.
I'm sorry. When you draft tight end 12 in points per game in the 5th round, it's a bust.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure what happens with the Bills receiving core. Last trade that I want to talk about here, we have from Adam. He sends away. We talked about a lot about Mahomes last week. That's why I want to talk about him again. It has his dynasty value changed. You send away Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, Calvin Ridley. Obviously, Hunt and Ridley just had big games. Mahomes finally had a bounce back performance. You buy low, presumably, on Brian Thomas Jr., Michael Penix, and a second. I already know what is going to come out of your mouth before you even say it, that you might even prefer Brian Thomas to Patrick Mahomes straight up. Is what you're saying. It's close, is what you're about to
They're
say.
both 2nd round picks in my rankings.
Yeah. So Michael Penix for Hunt, Ridley. Michael Penix and a second, for Hunt and Ridley. Pretty easy side of that trade. Again, I still have Mahomes in the 1st round. I have him as a top 10 startup pick still. I refuse to put the best quarterback in the world, or at least the best quarterback resume so far in the world outside of the 1st round. I can't do it.
I mean, I get it, but by the way, I'm gonna. It's close between. See, because I'm looking at my rankings right now. So I have Brian Thomas at 21. And I have Mahomes at 17. So again, I would take the Brian Thomas side. When I'm looking at the startup quarterback position, though, like I can't take Mahomes over Hurts, Stroud, Caleb, and Drake right now, knowing the age and knowing.
I still have him over Drake.
I mean, with the concussion, obviously he hasn't been able to show it, but even still, dude, in that first quarter, it's a really good.
He's an awesome player.
Like, dude, it all only reconfirmed when he comes back from that concussion. Again, hopefully he's fully healthy. That obviously would be a caveat, but if he comes back and he plays anything like he did in that 2.25 game stretch, he was a starter. I mean, I mentioned this last week. I think he's legitimately going to be a top 3, top 4 overall dynasty pick. I really do.
He could, and that's the ceiling for him for sure. And the one thing I would argue back is that Mahomes absolutely could be back up in that range, no problem, if he has good performances. And Mahomes' downside risk scenario is far, far higher of a floor than Drake Mays.
No, I get it.
I would still take Mahomes.
For the record, I think there's a very clear top 17 overall right now in Dynasty. So it's just quarterbacks and wide receivers, because the wide receivers that are going to be in that range, there is 6 of them in my rankings with, and honestly, it could even be 7 if you move up like guys like Brian Thomas, Drake London, Marvin Harrison. Like there's a few others that are really close in the 2nd round for me. But to me, the 6 that really stood out are Lamb, Jefferson, Chase, Neighbors, Collins, and Amon-Ra. Like I think those are like very clearly the top 6 wide receivers in Dynasty. And then the quarterback position, man, like we were talking about, Allen, Jackson, Daniels, Hurts, Stroud, Caleb, Drake May, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Like, I honestly think you can rank that 17 group in any order you want. Outside of like the top 5 are probably like the clear top 5. And then after that, it's like very fluid, I would say.
Also, I think it's hilarious that the top 2 dynasty quarterbacks are named Allen Jackson.
Yeah, facts.
Which is an elite little Easter egg of fantasy football right now. But yes, I'm pretty much on the same page. Although I do think Marvin Harrison did a lot for his dynasty value this week. I know it wasn't really dire. Like I wasn't really that concerned, and you were more concerned for me than I was. For Marvin Harrison Jr. But what did I say when we were doing the redraft? I was like, I can't put Brian Thomas over Marvin Harrison.
I would still take Brian Thomas over him
until a couple weeks go by, and I still had Harrison over Thomas coming in to the week, and I will continue to still have Harrison over Thomas.
And I think that's fair. Like at the very minute, like they're very close. But for me, it's like I haven't had any question marks all year with Brian Thomas. And that's why I would do it. Again, like Marvin Harrison, absolutely. If you want to take Marvin Harrison over Brian Thomas, I'm not going to fight you on it, because I mean, it was far more pro Brian Thomas than it was anti Marvin Harrison. Like my thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr. really didn't change all that much, except for the fact that I said by this point he could potentially be the dynasty wide receiver 1. And it's probably not looking like that, even regardless of what he does. Like he would probably have to average 130 yards per game rest of the season to be dynasty wide receiver.
I very much still think it's within the range of outcomes. He's dynasty wide receiver 1.
Do you think he's even going to pass Malik Neighbors though? Like I don't think he can.
I think it. I'm not saying he will. I'm saying he could.
But like range of outcomes, like Brian Thomas versus Marvin Harrison Jr. on a week in, week out basis, like when's Brian Thomas had a stretch where he's looked like a rookie wide receiver? Like I know he got hurt, Jeff. I do see that. And maybe if you're contending right now because you know Brian Thomas is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, you take Marvin Harrison because you know he's going to play. But like projecting forward, I think both are going to be very soon within the top 8 to 10 overall fantasy football wide receivers on a week out basis. In fact, Brian Thomas is already there. And in fact, in real life, I think, like I said, I compared Brian Thomas Jr. to Nico Collins. I think he could very much have that type of transcendent trajectory moving forward. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, we were both talking about him as being AJ Green, Larry Fitzgerald. Like, the upside is clearly there. Honestly, what this just tells me is I'm perfectly fine either going quarterback, wide receiver, or wide receiver to start my dynasty drafts at this point, because I want to end up with at least one of these wide receivers. Straight up.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think the reason that Harrison still has wide receiver 1 overall upside in Dynasty is because he was thought of to have that upside coming into the year, which matters on the Dynasty market. He has looked better, at least this past week, like he is, eye test wise, going to be as good as Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And maybe he'll be there by the end of the season. We might be like, these guys are all just so good. Throw them in a hat. Who cares? They're all elite wide receivers. And Marvin has, in my opinion, the best scheme, coaching staff, quarterback combination in the future, where he's going to be the clear alpha for a good NFL quarterback. Trevor Lawrence and Kyler Murray, you could argue they're probably about even in terms of how good of passers, how good of quarterbacks they are. But the Jaguars are probably going to fire their coach. And you're going to have a new offensive scheme in there, whereas Drew Petzing, I think, is calling a pretty good offense. So that would be my only argument, is that Harrison and Neighbors, and Neighbors too, like he has Daniel Jones as his quarterback. We have no idea what's happening there. So, yeah, they're all good. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, a little bit of a dynasty talk. Obviously, I can't wait up. I can't wait for startup season. Like it really can't come any sooner. Like I don't
know if I can handle any more leagues, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
We have to do at least one.
We'll have to do at least one, but it takes me an hour to set my fucking lineups every week.
I literally, so if you, obviously, you weren't, you ended up coming back after I ended the live stream, but I stopped it at 12:50 because I'm like, dude, I have to set 16 different lineups, including my redraft leagues, or 17 different lineups, including my redraft leagues. It's to the point where, like you said, it takes legitimately an hour if I'm actually thinking about my decisions, what I'm putting in to set my lineups.
Yeah. Maybe we'll be Dynasty Best Balls only going far, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Dynasty Best Ball would also help a ton.
I can cut down on other leagues, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. But
I don't like leaving leagues. I don't like leaving leagues. That's the thing. Well, here's the thing. Are you going to leave the leagues you have the best teams in? No. If you're trying to cut back on your leagues, you're going to naturally leave
sus if you leave
worse teams in.
But then it looks sus if you leave a league where you
exactly.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it's a big dilemma for sure. But we can move on to the waiver segment, and you actually have your top 5 listed here. Again, not the greatest week of waivers, I will say. And in fact, some of these guys are actually repeat names from previous weeks, but I'll let you start it off with your 5 here, because this is a guy that I did end up picking up for free on the Flock League, and ended up dropping right before he had a good game.
Yeah, so I'll drop. I'm going to be dropping my waiver TikTok later today. I normally drop it Tuesday mornings, but I'm going to drop it later today because I'm babysitting my nephews tomorrow all day, so I won't be available to make any content or whatever. So I'm going to drop the waiver video a little early today, just to make sure if you guys are in shallow leagues, 8-man leagues, 10-man leagues, for whatever reason, these guys are available. Calvin Ridley, Keon Coleman, Josh Downs, Ricky Pearsall, all between the 50 and 70% range. If they're available, they would be my number 1 for sure. But my number 5 guy is, you kind of teased him there, Elijah Moore of the Cleveland Browns. Did actually have 30% of the team's targets this week, 16.5 PPR points. And he actually had a half decent week last week as well. He is the slot receiver there. He is not going to run as many routes as Jerry Jeudy or as Cedric Tillman, but he's getting targets and looks better. And again, it's a bit of a crowded offense with Jameis Winston as the quarterback, where I think at any given point, you could see David Njoku have a big week. You could see Jerry Jeudy have a big week. You could see Elijah Moore have a big week. You could see Cedric Tillman have a big week, which is what we've seen so far. So I think he's a viable flex play or whatever, but I'm not going to break the bank on Elijah Moore thinking he's going to be, the guy that we thought he was going to eventually become when he was a second-year player.
Yeah, no, I pretty much sums it up. If you guys are an OG of the channel, you'll know our sustained love for Elijah Moore since he came out back in 2020, I believe 2021. Yeah,
right? 2021, he was in that class, yeah.
Yeah, because Bateman, all those guys, Jamar Chase, 2021. So, I mean, we loved him straight up. We thought he was going to be the second coming. So we'll get that out of the way. Unfortunate that he's taken the development path that he has, but who knows? Maybe the deep down Elijah Moore 2021 Ole Miss guy is still there. Probably not.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm a little skeptical. I think I
Same.
tend to believe that Tillman is going to be the guy that you want to own there. And
I mean,
Njoku is actually the number one, is what I think also.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you'll spoiler alert, you may be hearing a little bit more about Tillman in a second.
Yep. Number 4 waiver ad for me this week is Keaton Mitchell. This is probably the worst running back waiver slate I've seen all year.
Yeah.
There's nobody. There's nothing at the running back position. The only running backs that are available that are worth adding are handcuffs. If you want to stash Ray Davis, if you want to stash, name a handcuff running back. If you want to stash them, go nuts. That's probably your best bet if you're looking for running back help. However, there is no, Tyler Goodson that you could throw into your lineup. There is no Alexander Madison that you could throw into your lineup. There's nobody like that this week. And there honestly hasn't been for like 2 or 3 weeks, is what it feels like. So for me, Keaton Mitchell is the guy that I would be stashing because he's both a Derrick Henry handcuff and he was extremely talented as a rookie. 8.4 yards per carry, 32% missed tackle force rate. He was activated off the PUP list to start practicing last week, which means that either this week or next week, he will be activated to play games. And Derrick Henry's old. Again, obviously he's really good and he's having a great season, but he's still an older running back. And I would like to have Keaton Mitchell stashed on my IR spot or whatever else to just, what happens if Keaton Mitchell weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 is the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens? He could legitimately win people leagues. So if you're in a winning position, he's a great stash.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much summed that up. 8.4 yards per carry, like you said, last year, very efficient. It was a very gruesome injury, if you do remember from last year. Like his knee basically bent inward in half.
Yeah,
so,
we were in Buffalo for that.
Yeah, I remember that. We watched that live. We're like, holy shit, that guy just died on the field because it didn't look like it.
Yeah, not a great injury, but he has some upside. Like I said, if he's able to come back from it. The next guy, and I'm actually going to group his teammate in here. I have like deep league waiver stashes for some leagues, but Xavier Legette is right now rostered in 37% of leagues, so he's probably widely available in really sharp formats. But Jalen Coker, his teammate, also pretty good options. Ironically, even though Xavier Legette went in the first round and Jalen Coker was a UDFA, they were like back-to-back for me almost in my wide receiver rankings pre-draft. I had Legette, I think, wide receiver 9 or wide receiver 8 pre-draft, and Jalen Coker was my wide receiver 12, and they were very close in terms of their overall grade. So Legette is the guy that has the investment from the team. He had a 21% target share this week, 13.4 PPR points, but Jalen Coker is actually the one who outscored him with 17.8 PPR points, found the end zone. Both of those guys are interesting for a couple of reasons. For starters, I don't think Bryce Young is going to start every game. I don't know what's going to happen with Andy Dalton. Maybe Bryce Young is going to be the starter going forward. I have no idea. But Deontay Johnson is probably the hottest trade name in the wide receiver landscape right now. And I would imagine he probably gets moved close to the deadline. So Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker are probably going to continue to play snaps.
I mean, maybe this is like completely misguided. Okay, no, he had a good game, a couple good games last year, but at the very minimum this year, like that was very clearly Bryce's best game, right? And it was still pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, he missed Legette for a long, he had would have been like a 50 or 60 yard completion, and he overthrew Legette on that one too. Again, I don't exactly know if you're going to ever know that Legette is a weekly starter. Maybe he is, because he was a raw rookie. He could come out and start playing better and keep commanding targets, but he ran more routes, Jalen Coker, than Xavier Legette. So that's why I'm like not really all in on either of them. I think Coker is the good value add. People won't be probably too excited about him, especially in deeper leagues. But like I said, this is like both of these guys are like 5, 10, 20% fab at absolute most if you need wide receiver help. As much as I want to say, oh yeah, Legette, first round rookie receiver, he's getting better, he's going to have a monster second half of the season. I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I just saw this on Twitter, but somebody said Gardner been too ass this season. Got to go rebrand to Ahmed. Sauce?
What's that?
Sauce Gardner?
Oh, yeah.
He's been too bad this season to be branded as Sauce.
Yeah, I see that for sure. Number 2 waiver ad early here is Parker Washington. Like we said, all 3 Jaguars receivers went down. 14% target share this week, 74% of the routes. Had some catches. Again, immediate wide receiver production is pretty hard to come by in general off of a waiver wire. And this guy's immediate wide receiver production, because you can throw him into your lineup probably next week, knowing that Thomas is going to be out and that Christian Kirk absolutely will be out the whole year. And as we know about Parker Washington, he's a slot receiver. So if Kirk is out, he's going to be the guy that fills the Kirk role. I don't know how many targets he's going to get. I don't know how good of a player he is. He seems to be like an average NFL receiver for the most part, but he's kind of Jalen McMillan-y, as in he's going to play the role that the starter left behind.
That's a good comp for him. I think he's like a worse version of McMillan. I actually remember Washington when he was coming out. In fact, like I remember him at Penn State. I drafted him on a campus to Canton team back in the day. Like that league ended up folding like at the draft because some douchebag ended up ruining it. But regardless though, like Parker Washington was always like pretty interesting, not a very good athlete, but can do like the dirty work across the middle of the field, kind of like what Christian Kirk has done. Obviously Kirk is a better mover in space, but like you said with McMillan, like McMillan was never going to beat you because he's the best athlete on the field. What he's going to do is because he's going to work, he's going to play that tough middle of the field type of role. And I mean, it's almost like the Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashee Rice, now DeAndre Hopkins, like that role in the NFL. It's like, even if you have limited athletic capabilities, if you can just play tough across the middle of the field, that is very valuable in the modern NFL, especially against too high.
Yeah, and Matthew said Hutchinson was a big slot in college, made me laugh. I was curious if I was wrong about this, and I actually was. So I misspoke there. I thought for some reason, I thought coming out of school, he played like 70% of the snaps from the slot, but he actually was only like a 29% slot receiver. So that was my mistake. Yeah, Matthew had me fact check that.
No, you're good. Because like when you said it again, I wasn't gonna like correct you, but I'm like, yeah, no, he's gonna play the Nico role for sure.
I don't know why. For some reason, I thought he was a big slot. I thought he played that role at Iowa State for some reason.
I mean, like he's not on this waiver segment, by the way, but like just going back to the John Mechie point, like free bids in your league. If you're up early in the morning and you want to stash him in a deeper league, like I think he would also fill the bill because, like like if anybody's gonna fill that Diggs role. I mean, the guy had 4 targets on 28% of the snaps. Like, that's what I keep coming back to.
Hutchinson is in my stashes for deep leagues area where I don't think you're going to necessarily want to play him. It's a run-heavy offense. Tank Dell is going to be the number 1. It's a bad matchup in week number 9. So I have Coker there. I have Hutchinson in my deep league stashes. I have Garendo there because we don't know if he's going to be really anything because they're on bye this week and McCaffrey is expected to be back. Miles Sanders and Khalil Herbert have both been subject of trade deadline talks, so maybe they're worth stashing as well if the Cowboys or whatever other team would maybe want to go trade for a running back. Kayshon Boutte is not Boutte. He's been fine. He's gotten targets.
Yeah.
He's been okay.
How many guys do you actually feel good about putting in your lineup? Not too many.
No, and these I'm talking the guys that I just named are like if you're in a 14-man league, you probably don't want to roster them otherwise. The best ad on the week by far
very clear.
Is Cedric Tillman by far. And Cedric Tillman had 28.9 PPR points this week, 16.1 last week, top 15 in back-to-back games. He is running the most routes of any Browns wide receiver. As a Buccaneers fan, I can tell you that Jameis Winston likes big dudes who can run and who can get separation down the field. And Cedric Tillman is actually playing really well, which I didn't expect to be the case. Like Cedric Tillman, the prospect, was interesting because he was a ball winner. He was like a tough, physical. Maybe he could be a Corey Davis in the NFL. I think that was what my comp was for him coming out of school was Corey Davis or Cortland.
I think that was mine too.
Like that. I think it was Corey Davis that we comped him to. But he looked a lot more explosive and like he's kind of maybe progressed as a route runner in the 2 games that we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Hear me out. Like he's looked really freaking good. And this is a guy that the numbers didn't say everything on in his prospect profile. Because when you actually look at Tennessee, like people are like, oh, Jalen Hyatt's like the clear best receiver in Tennessee. It's like, well, if you actually look how that offense functioned, a guy like Jalen Hyatt was always going to be the big time producer. But when you watch both of them play, Cedric Tillman was very clearly the better receiver. Now, obviously, again, take that with a grain of salt because Jalen Hyatt is like pretty dog shit in the NFL. He sucks. But like Tillman has always had the allure of like that big bodied possession X wide receiver, can do the dirty things on the outside. Like I think dirty things has been coming out of my mouth all fucking stream. That like we're just talking about a bunch of dogs. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about guys that are willing to make the tough catches. And I mean, credit to Tillman, man. He's been doing that at college. And obviously now with the opportunity in the NFL with Amari Cooper gone, he's really taking a step up. And like you said, I mean, Jameis Winston needs a Mike Evans into this offense. Am I going to say Cedric Tillman is Mike Evans? Absolutely fucking not. Mike Evans, I mean, you would kill me if I said that. But in terms of the role he could play, I think he can play that Evans role.
Yeah, and he could be the red zone target. He's got 1.72 and 2.48 yards per route run the last 2 games. 64.1%, 64.1 PFF receiving grade in week 7 was a career high. In week 8, comes out against the Ravens, 77.4 receiving grade, new career high. So he's improving. His confidence is higher. It's also very similar to what I said with like the whole Watson and the Brown situation. it looks like he wasn't even running his routes at full speed before with Deshaun Watson versus what he's doing now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's just the Jameis Winston effect and he's making his teammates better around him, but he looks good, man. He looks good. And Cedric Tillman was a decent prospect. And he had traits on film and he had things about his prospect profile that were actually good. Like, you go back, his 2022 season was really bad, but he was also really banged up. In 2021 at Tennessee, he had 12 touchdowns and 1,081 yards with Jalen Hyatt on the same field, with I believe Velus Jones maybe on the same field, or some other producing wide receivers.
We missed this because we were streaming. Apparently, Deontay Johnson expected to be traded next week, so that is a big uptick in the Panthers wide receivers.
Right, and that's exactly what I was kind of alluding to with Leggett and Coker, is that you're stashing, maybe Leggett because he can play right away for you, but Coker too. Like, if you guys recall there's a video on this channel that says the next Puka on it, on the thumbnail, and Jalen Coker is in the picture because Jalen Coker had a good prospect profile from a small school. And if you're the Carolina Panthers, what does it benefit you to play Deontay Johnson anyways? When you have a young UDFA like Jalen Coker and a young first-round receiver like Xavier Leggett, you want to see maybe what you have in Jonathan Mingo, who's a second-round pick. Play these young guys.
They traded for Deontay Johnson to develop Bryce Young because they hoped that Bryce Young would take the step up in his second year. We can confidently say at this point that he hasn't taken the step up, and Deontay Johnson wasn't going to change that. So now if you're the Panthers, you already traded assets to get Deontay Johnson. I'm telling you right now, teams like, the Cowboys need a wide receiver.
People mentioned the 49ers in here too. Kansas City will probably be interested.
Well, Kansas City ended up getting DeAndre, so maybe they don't now. But there's a ton of teams that need wide receiver help. So Deontay Johnson, if you're the Carolina Panthers and you can get, he is a pending free agent, so maybe you can only get like a fourth rounder. But for you, that's a free fourth rounder. You're not re-signing the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, precisely. That's exactly what you need to do in this situation. And Dave Canales needs to have a masterclass every week now. Yeah, they're a bad team. Everybody knows this, but what you can take away from this season, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, is, hey, maybe Xavier Leggett's going to be our new number one receiver. Maybe Jalen Coker is going to be our new number two receiver. Maybe Jonathan Mingo works as a big slot and he can actually function in the NFL. If all three of those receivers were hits relative to what you expected from them, that would be a great news for the Carolina Panthers, because that means the quarterback that they probably are going to draft in 2025 or maybe 2026 is actually going to have somebody to throw to. And also too, you have to play Bryce the rest of the year. You have to. I know he's been terrible, and he's not going to really help the young progression of your young receivers, but you cannot go into next season without knowing the answer to, is Bryce Young our quarterback or not? You cannot go into next season with just Bryce Young as your quarterback unless he plays the rest of the year.
I would agree. It'd be hilarious if they just brought Sam Darnold back, but I digress.
It would be funny. It would be really funny.
To be fair, he could run the Canales offense pretty fucking well.
I think he could. Yeah, I think he could, but that would be really funny, I think. And I don't know if Sam Darnold wants to go back there either.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Sorry, I just want to highlight this because I did mention it, but yeah, dude, Deontay is probably the perfect fit of a receiver the Cowboys should go for. The reason why, they need a man-to-man separator. Jalen Tolbert is your contested catch, big body guy. I think Tolbert has played some very good football. It's just he's not a separating wide receiver. He's the jump up, go up and get a wide receiver on this team. We know CeeDee Lamb's number one. With Brandon Cooks off the field, they don't have another wide receiver outside of CeeDee that can consistently separate versus man coverage.
When Brandon Cooks is on the field, they don't have that.
He can't either. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. So, if the cost is a fourth round pick, and Jerry's then we have to pay him after the year. Go make the fucking trade. Straight up.
Really? You would say that even despite the Cowboys Twitter focus on draft capital right now, not on winning?
Dude, when's the last time the Cowboys have had a good second round pick? Straight up. Again, we wouldn't trade a second in that deal, but point being, if it costs a fourth rounder, send it. At least try to salvage the season. You need another separator on offense because watching the Cowboys play sometimes, Dak is back there scanning for somebody to be open, and there's just no option open. There isn't. Yeah.
This is Pittsburgh, Dallas, and San Fran. Deontay going back to the Steelers would be so fucking funny. I'm not going to lie. If Deontay Johnson goes from getting out of for what it's worth too, I'd like to see Deontay
Sorry,
Johnson.
this also made me laugh too. I'm not going to lie the way he said that. But
yeah, Texans also make a lot of sense with Diggs going down. If Diggs is out for the year, I think that makes quite a bit of sense.
Do you think if they trade for Deontay, we see some more slot usage from Dell or no?
I don't know. I think it'll probably be virtually the same. I could see the Jags maybe even being interested in Deontay too. Also, going from the Steelers to the Panthers to the Jaguars sounds exactly like where Deontay Johnson's career trajectory would go.
What sounds worse, Steelers to Panthers to Jaguars, or Steelers to Panthers to Steelers?
I mean, the Steelers are a good franchise, so I would say Steelers are better than the Jaguars situation. If the Jaguars ownership lets Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson trade assets away, then they're just trolling. Like, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it is very not ideal for that situation. But yeah, I mean, like, there's what I've learned is there's just a ton of wide receiver needy teams right now. Straight up.
There's tons.
So this is a wide receiver league.
We could actually very much use Deontay Johnson in a timing and rhythm based offense. Deontay Johnson would be extremely helpful for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Only Jason Light hates trading draft picks. He hates it.
I mean, you think Jason Light hates trading draft picks? Look at the fucking Cowboys, dude.
Well, I mean, Jason Light has a reason because he hits on his picks in the mid round. You guys do really good in the first round, but we do really well in round 3 and 4. That's like our money zone.
The only round we actually just can't make a right pick though is the second. Like, we actually historically we've actually hit like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I mean, Bland was like a 6th round pick when we drafted him too.
Yeah, we've had a couple misses in round 2, specifically a kicker and Ronald Jones and MJ Stewart and a bunch of guys like that. Logan Hall hasn't been great so far.
Don't say the name of the kicker. Roberto Guayo. That's what his fucking name was.
We took a kicker in the 2nd round, unfortunately. But
we also, if I remember correctly,
we drafted the best punter in the league on day 3 2 years ago. So
if I remember this correctly, wasn't Roberto Aguayo like 2nd to last year really good? And then he had like a bad final year before he committed, and people are like, "Oh no, it's good. He was 2 years ago. He was good 2 years ago." Therefore, like,
so, yeah.
Fucking Christ.
We have cooked the UDFAs that Light gets have been really good. Christian Izzian is the most recent example of a UDFA who's been really solid for us, and Sean Tucker as well, a good example of a UDFA who's been good for us. But yeah, we're gonna head off of here. Thank you guys for joining us the last hour and a half or so. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. We will be live later tonight to go over Monday Night Football. It is kind of a drizzler of a game, the Steelers and the Giants, but we'll have pick'ems. We'll have other stuff to talk about during that game. We'll be shooting the shit, so make sure to tune in for that. We'll probably be live around 7:30 Eastern. But yeah, stay tuned for waivers tomorrow. Danny's going to have you covered on the YouTube channel. I'll have you covered on TikTok today, although I did kind of just give you most of the spiel that I'm going to give over there. And yeah, any other things you need to say before we go here?
No, enjoy the week. Hopefully, if AJ's still in there, he's going to hear this. Hopefully the Cowboys can bounce back against the Falcons next week, because that would actually help both of us.
It would. Yes, it would help us both. But unfortunately, the Falcons look like a pretty good passing offense so far this year, even though Drake London had a terrible game. So
also go Lakers tonight.
No more. We said no more basketball. We're ending the stream right now. Again, appreciate you guys for joining us. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.